injuries start stacking up for a team, and it can make or break your entire season. I want to talk a little bit about Alabama specifically, because Alabama, I don't know who Nick Saban pissed off. Like, did he kick a puppy? I have no idea. Their entire receiving corps is injured. Their entire receiving corps is injured. Calvin Ridley, Robert Foster, and Ardarius Stewart, and even Raheem Falcons. Injured. The entire roster. The entire wide receiver corps. Gone. And, you're thinking to yourself, well, Alabama can run the football. Yeah, we're about to find that out now. We are about to get ourselves a nice little test of Alabama's running back depth, because they have 2 injured running backs, right? Like, Bo Scarborough still dealing with the bruised quad. That's still happening. And you can go ahead and just toss Damian Harrison on there. The ankle is injured, okay? He might be able to play Saturday. He might be able to play. But you know what? He's going to get limited action, most likely, right? Like, it's just, you don't just come back from ankle injuries and just show up and start balling out. He's probably going to see limited action. Now, I read an interesting article by William Carroll of SEC Country earlier in the week, and one of the things to note about Alabama and their athletic training staff is that they are on the forefronts. This, according to Will Carroll of SEC Country, they are on the forefronts of cryotherapy. And I don't really know how cryotherapy works. I am not a doctor, much less anybody who should be near anything involving science. I am not a scientist at all. Okay? I just know that the temperature, lowering the temperature and then raising the temperature again drastically, and the cryotherapy lowers the temperature to temperatures near absolute zero and then brings it back, is supposed to increase the healing process. It's supposed to make it faster. I don't understand how all this stuff works, except that Alabama is on the forefronts of it, which of course they are. Like some kind of supervillain. Of course they are. Alabama on the forefronts of cryotherapy. I mean, that's the least surprising sentence that anyone's ever uttered. But if he's able to come back, he's still not going to be able to be 100%. So we'll see just how deep that legendary Alabama running back depth is, because they're going to need it. Throwing the ball, I'm not going to say it's out of the question, but it's going to be demonstratively more difficult if you don't have wide receivers to throw to. And losing Calvin Ridley is huge, because that guy runs a 4.3. That guy gets 40 yards in 4.3 seconds. You can use that on a football field, I hear. That's what sources tell me. Your 4.3 receiver is gone. Pretty big loss, from what I understand. So I don't know what's going to happen. I don't think that this is going to stop Alabama from walking through Kentucky. But it is something to look forward to or look into for the rest of the season if Alabama keeps accruing injuries, because that seems to be the only thing that can stop them. They're really good. There was no fall off like we thought they would be. They are just really, really good at football again. Again. And I don't know why. Like, I have no reason to explain why, but like, the injuries are the only thing that can stop Alabama. Really. So we'll see how deep that team is. Some more injuries, obviously. Florida has got Luke Del Rio. He's been injured last week versus Tennessee. And Austin Appleby will get the start. I think they're pretty confident moving on with him at the moment. Del Rio did practice. However, Luke Del Rio is also the emergency backup quarterback, despite the fact that he is in fact injured. So should something happen to Austin Appleby, so far as injuries go, Luke Del Rio would somehow have to play football despite his injured knee. And I don't even want to see what would happen were that to occur. But you've got to figure something out there. You really do. And then, of course, my favorite injury to talk about, because it's got the most interesting ramifications, which is why I saved it for last, even though of the teams I just talked about, the one that's definitely done for the season is LSU. But LSU is the most interesting team, right? Like we talked yesterday about Ed Orgeron becoming the interim head coach after the firing of Les Miles, which is mostly just going to be fun because hearing what it is that deep Louisiana Cajun Cookie Monster sounds like on a weekly basis as we try and decipher what it is that this man is saying, that's going to be fantastic. I can't wait to do that. That's already going to be interesting. But then when you try and figure out, like, how much of a dumpster fire could LSU actually be? Because they could range anywhere from surprising us and really finishing out the season decently, which I would prefer for a lot of reasons, mostly that we would keep Orgeron as head coach, I would think. But that you can range from that and to complete dumpster fire. This team is worthless to watch in every single way. Completely. And it's starting right now with the injury to Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette, who is, if he plays tomorrow, he will not just be limited, he will be extremely limited, especially since you are changing coaching staffs and you don't want to take too many risks with Leonard Fournette. But don't you remember last year when we were talking about Leonard Fournette, and Leonard Fournette was stomping all over the SEC like he was giant Mario squashing Goombas? Do you remember that? And we talked about Leonard Fournette and how Leonard Fournette can't enter the NFL draft because he isn't old enough yet. And should Leonard Fournette just sit out this year at LSU so that he could not risk injury and risk losing money in the NFL draft? And we all knew it wasn't going to happen, right? Leonard Fournette is a competitor. You don't get to be as good at football as he is without having some kind of competitive spirit. There was no way he was just going to sit out the year, though if he had done it, I would not have blamed him. And moreover, were I in his shoes, I would have done it. I would have sat out a year. I'm not risking losing money for anything. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I just like money too much. I'm not going to risk losing money for school pride. I just don't have that much of it, I guess. Maybe it's just me. School pride is not a reason to go out there risking money because he's playing for free. And here's Leonard Fournette, 4 games into the season before he can enter the NFL draft. And a couple of things are happening. One, he had to run in his coach's boring, unimaginative offense. Then that coach got fired. Then he got injured. Leonard Fournette's draft stock is not in danger yet. It's not falling anywhere. It's not plummeting anywhere. But make no mistake, this is not what you wanted if you were Leonard Fournette. If you were Leonard Fournette, this could not be further from what it is that you imagined happening. And if the injury looks nagging, it is going to hurt Leonard Fournette a little bit because we haven't seen him play up at that level that he was playing at last year. He's missing a little bit. I mean, it's obvious. And part of it again is that offense. It's just not his fault. And anybody would struggle under those conditions. I mean, you've got a quarterback that's just seeming to not really be suitable for the offense in Brandon Harris. And then On top of that, the offense isn't that great to begin with. It doesn't afford itself a lot of opportunities. It gives you a lot of carries. You're going to run a lot. But if everybody knows you're going to run, what is the point? Like Leonard Fournette is beating a lot of times teams sending 8 to the box. They know he's coming. And he still just has to kind of run through it. It's kind of ridiculous. You're listening to Hot 1240. Clutch with Keon, Rose. We've got some games for you. We've got some games for you tomorrow. Oklahoma versus TCU, which you have to realize how important this is. TCU is ranked number 21. This is not where they wanted to be when the season started. You had back-to-back seasons where you were in the conversation for the college football playoff. And here you are, ranked 21st. And Oklahoma, remember them? Man, that was a dream, wasn't it? Remember when Oklahoma used to be in that conversation for the college football playoff? Oh, yeah. That was 4 weeks ago. And then they absolutely imploded, which I mentioned earlier. I am a Texas fan. Understand that I am actually taking extra glee in Oklahoma being Oklahoma. Oh, man, nothing is bringing me more joy than Oklahoma falling to pieces. But Oklahoma can still redeem themselves. Can they make the playoff? No, but they've got a whole lot of season left. They've got a very good football team. Baker Mayfield is still a good quarterback. That team just hasn't been able to pull out the victories that they've needed. Also on the docket tomorrow is Wisconsin versus Michigan, which is a rivalry game. Michigan and Jim Harbaugh, nothing needs to be said about them. They are very, very good, still undefeated, playing Wisconsin, also undefeated. The Badgers are better than we thought. I sold them short. When LSU lost to them at the beginning of the season, I thought that was a bad loss because I didn't think Wisconsin was that great. And having had the opportunity to look at a little bit of Wisconsin football this season and see how it is that they managed to win. Like, they just play boring. It's not that they're a bad team. It's that they're Northern LSU. Like, if you cloned Les Miles and his offense, it would look like Wisconsin. Like, Les Miles would be perfectly happy with that offense. They just don't mind winning ugly football games. And Michigan lost a couple of ugly football games last year, if you recall. They don't do ugly well. So that's going to be an interesting game. And, of course, Louisville versus Clemson, which is a game I want to talk to you all about for a plethora of reasons. But also Lamar Jackson versus Deshaun Watson. Like, if that's not the college football quarterback matchup of the year, I don't know what is. My only question is, you're Louisville, and you are what, 2 weeks removed from just clowning Florida State, who's really good, by the way. Just clowned them. Just made them look stupid. I mean, it was like watching... Well, it was like watching Louisville play Marshall, which happened the next week. And it really didn't look that different from when they played Florida State. It really didn't look that different. And Clemson has not looked good. Clemson's offense this season is much slower. They don't throw the ball deep as often as they could and as they should. They don't have those passing lanes open because their running game's taking a step backwards. Their offensive line doesn't look great. There's a lot of problems over there at Clemson. Like, I thought Clemson might be a shoo-in to return to the national title game, and not so. Not so. They're really going to have to work if they want to get back, and they're certainly good and talented enough to do so. But Louisville is going to be a test. They will expose everything that Clemson is struggling with. And if Clemson cannot fire back, it's going to be ugly. But they've got Deshaun Watson. And I think if anybody in college football can overcome what it is that Clemson has going on with their team, because I mean, overcoming not having a running game is really hard to do in college football. You know, we talk about how the NFL is a quarterback sport. College football is not a quarterback sport. Alabama's won several national titles with no quarterback that you can remember. Like, none of those guys go on to be NFL goods, much less NFL greats. None of them. None of them. You don't need a great quarterback to win in college football. Now, it makes your life much easier. Like, if you're Georgia, can you imagine this season without Jacob Eason? Like, imagine this season with Grayson Lambert. You're like 1-3. You are 1-3. Because that Nicholls State game, without the ability to throw the ball down the field and just punish Nicholls State for having inferior secondary players, that's a different game. I don't think you make it out of the Missouri one either. Can you imagine this season without Grayson Lambert? Great. Having a good quarterback in college football makes your life easier. It does not necessarily mean you have to have one. That's a much harder sell in the NFL. And you're Clemson, you've got Deshaun Watson. That whole no running game thing that they're trying to live with, it's easier because they have that guy. And that guy is a brilliant quarterback. I don't know how good Lamar Jackson is. Is that a weird take? I don't know how good Lamar Jackson is. He's put up a video game resume statistically. He's got more touchdowns and yards than like 3 out of the 5 top college offenses. Right? He's something like 14 touchdowns passing, 13 touchdowns rushing. 4 weeks into the season. And I just have to wonder, like, how good are you really? And I understand that there was skepticism about him in the first 2 weeks of the year because they didn't really play anybody. Then they dropped Florida State like a bad habit. But then they ran through Marshall last week. Marshall. Like, Marshall's not anybody either. So, like, 3 out of the 4 teams that you faced, you haven't faced anybody. And so I have to wonder, did Lamar Jackson take advantage of Florida State and just have a scorching hot game? How good is this guy? If you beat Clemson, you have to acknowledge this guy's really good. I think you already have to acknowledge that this guy is really good. But you have to now go to that next level of, like, this guy could be the best quarterback in college football. In fact, you'd have to acknowledge it. Because nobody poses quite the threat running and throwing that he does right now. Okay? It's like if you took the best of RG3 and Michael Vick and then gave him a really good offense to be in, like a really, really pass-centric offense, which RG3 did have at Baylor, but RG3 to me is not a football runner. He's fast and he's a great runner, but he's not a great football runner. That's why he takes all the hits that he takes. He doesn't know when not to take hits. He doesn't know how to fall so that he doesn't get extra injuries. He's not a great football runner. Meanwhile, Michael Vick, possibly the best football runner in the history of the game. Because what I grew up watching Michael Vick on television, and what Michael Vick did at Virginia Tech is horrifying. He could not be stopped. He could not be stopped. Like, he really looked unstoppable. So Michael Vick and RG3, if you put them together, you'd get a guy that's not as fast as either, but he's a great runner and a great football runner and with the arm strength. Come on, man. I mean, what are we talking about here? But Lamar Jackson is already good, but I don't know how good. Because, I mean, we do this all the time, right? People did it with Dak Prescott after the preseason. Oh, Dak Prescott's going to be a Hall of Famer. No, he's not just yet. You pump the brakes on that right now. You pump the brakes on that right now. Lamar Jackson, could he win the Heisman Trophy? Look, if he keeps playing like this, you'd have to give it to him. You'd have to. But does that make Lamar Jackson one of the greatest college football players you've ever seen? Let's see some more from him. Let's see him play quality opponents. And Clemson definitely is one, despite all of the setbacks that they have. So really the two questions to be answered here. How good is Clemson? And can they make it back to a national title game this season? And how good is Lamar Jackson? Because he looks pretty brilliant so far. He is off to possibly the hottest start that you could ask for anybody. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News, Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. I'm doing fantasy football this year. It's stressful. It's nothing but stress for me, as I knew it would be. This is why I try and avoid fantasy football, but I couldn't avoid it this year. I got invited by some friends at church. I joined the league. I'm not going to sit here and talk about my fantasy football team with you. But here's what I will do. I want to do a fantasy football show. And so we will do it on Facebook. Because unless I get a million questions, it's really, what are your takes on fantasy football? Who do you want to start? Who do you need to sit? Who's trending? Who's not trending? I have all of those answers. And I'm very good at giving fantasy football advice. Everyone that I give fantasy football advice to, they win. The only person who doesn't win fantasy football is me, myself. If I give it to you, you'll win. That's just a fact. I mean, I'm really good at giving fantasy football advice. I will not toot my horn about much. I'm not an arrogant person. But fantasy football advice, I know how it works. I'm just saying. You're listening to Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. Thank you for joining us this week. Make sure to check out those games on Hot 1240, Hot News Talk Radio tomorrow. That is Michigan, Wisconsin, and Clemson and Louisville. Make sure to check them out. Remember, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. Stay clutch. I'll see you in 72 hours, but don't go anywhere. Alex Jones is next.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Wars come and go, but my soldiers stay eternal.
Now you can listen to Hot News Talk Radio anywhere, streaming live at Noogaradio.com. That's Noogaradio.com.
Hot News Talk 1240.
We've got a table here at Delia's, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia spreads a rich selection: loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy near the Thrasher Light. There's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nacho chips made fresh every day in the kitchen. Delia's, open every day except the Lord's Day. Treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. 521-7145.
Whole body vibration really works for weight loss, pain relief, circulation, and building bone density. Go to Lily's at Sing on TV and talk to Dottie at the Gun Barrel Road store and Robert at the 153 Hickson location. 10 minutes equals 1 hour walking. It really works.
I'm blowing everything up. We're starting over. I'm doing a new show. I want guys who push it to the middle of the table and go over the top. Take a risk, fail miserably. I'm right, and I'm not wrong, and I'll never back down. Conflict works. Allow it.
It's The Herd with Colin Cowherd. Right here and everywhere. Noon Eastern.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Rubber's tough, but foam rubber is soft. Foam rubber is the star at Stuff It Upholstery, which uses it to revive your couch, your embarrassing easy chair, your boat seat cushions. Stuff It foam rubber in Hickson covers Chattanooga and surrounding areas. Don't throw out that favorite easy chair that's grown haggard and barbaric. New life for your seat cushions. Premium auto-grade rubber foam for your restaurant, church, or business. Stuff It Upholstery brings comfort and relief. Go ahead, skid away from flat, dull, and droopy cushions. Relax, restore, revive. When comfort matters, stuff it. Mention Monica Lewinsky. Get 10 cents off on the dollar. 877-1616. That's 877-1616.
I'm Larry Daniels from Daniels Insurance, and on the average, our customers save $400 a year. We offer retirement vehicles and annuities in addition to other investment products that help you protect your family. Call 423-332-4774.
Finding just the right place to live can be a daunting task. Stop your search. In Chattanooga, the place to live is Cross Creek
You
Village.
give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
WSDT Sunny Daisy, Chattanooga.
Trump's tweets dominate the campaign.
His latest Twitter meltdown is unhinged, even for him.
Progress in the train wreck investigation.
We've obtained blood and urine samples from the engineer.
This is the CBS World News Roundup, late edition. I'm Bill Whitney. It started in the pre-dawn hours this morning when Donald Trump tweeted that holding up former Miss Universe Alicia Machado as a paragon of virtue shows Hillary Clinton has bad judgment. He suggested that Clinton helped Machado become a U.S. citizen so she could use her in Monday night's debate. Clinton on Twitter said when something gets under Donald's thin skin, he lashes out and can't let go. She continued at a rally in Coral Springs, Florida.
I mean, really, who gets up at 3 o'clock in the morning to engage in a Twitter attack against a former Miss Universe?
To the people knocking him for tweeting at 3 a.m., Trump tweeted, "At least you know I will be there awake to answer the call." Trump complained about his microphone at the debate, and it turns out he had a point. Correspondent Stephen Portnoy has that.
Throughout Monday's debate, Donald Trump was heard sniffling. Immediately after, he told reporters something wasn't right.
My mic was defective within the room.
Hillary Clinton mocked him, saying anyone who complains about a mic knows he didn't have a good night. But now the Commission on Presidential Debate says there were issues with Trump's audio affecting the sound level in the debate hall. The commission hasn't explained the issues nor clarified whether they carried over to what you heard on radio and television. Stephen Portnoy, CBS News.
Officials now say the voter registration systems in more than 20 states have been hacked.
I'm Peter King. It's not clear whether the attacks are coming from within this country or from foreign countries, nor what the hackers' motives might be. Last month, the FBI warned state officials to tighten up election security after hackers broke into systems in Arizona and Illinois. This week, FBI Director James Comey told Congress the agency is looking, quote, very, very hard at Russia.
The wreckage of that New Jersey transit train still sits at the terminal in Hoboken. Investigators have retrieved the event recorder from the locomotive end at the rear, but Bella Din-Zar of the National Transportation Safety Board says the debris prevents them from getting to the front.
As soon as the site is safe,